Say this is the city where we come to live our dreams, make our life anew. And if this tale of romance is as magic as it seems, my dreams are coming true. Come, take my hand and let's stroll through the park, far from the noise and the crowd. Here by the fountain we can dream, we can drift. Our New York story starts with a kiss.
Joining me is a very special guest, Canadian jazz musician Micah Barnes, and is here today to talk about his successful music career and what's next for him. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to be here.
Yeah, so when did your passion for music begin?
Oh dear. Well, probably in my mother's belly, actually. She talks about having seen Beethoven's Ninth the night before I was born. And, my father was a classical composer, and my mother's mother was a concert pianist, so I'm just in the family business, really.
Right.
That's how it worked out, so I was very young.
When was your first performance?
You know, if we don't count performing around the dinner table, or in the living room, because I was charging the neighborhood kids to come and see puppet shows, and then we would make them up on the spot, and then we used to have this little musical theater show that we would do where we would lip sync to Jesus Christ Superstar for the neighborhood kids. We just thought that was fun. We just thought that was playing, me and my brothers, and of course I directed everything. So I can't really count those, because I was like 8. But my first professional gigs were in my teens. I was very young. By the time I was 13, 14, I was out there playing piano and singing, and I just was hungry to perform. It was weird. It was in my blood.
Like in your DNA.
Totally in my DNA.
And
yeah.
So you took classes to learn piano, and was it some of it self-taught?
Yes. My parents, because they were already in the business, they knew to help me find like the best possible teachers, which I always recommend to families that have a youngster. Like, it's really convenient to get the teacher that's on your block, but that's not necessarily the best teacher for your child or young adult. Like in my case, I traveled and worked with a wonderful piano player who had worked with Cleo Lane and Billie Holiday, and he was just an exceptional player. And he was not a particularly patient teacher, but he was a wonderful teacher for me. He was great. He taught me to accompany myself. And I was in my teens, but I had some good starts. You know, I took dance, I took acting, I took it very seriously. You know, I was like, okay, well, I'm preparing for a life of a performer. I'm going to need all these skills.
What was your life like? So it was considered child time, right?
Yeah.
Like, did you notice you perhaps were like, you have that urge like you want to play outside, but yet you were playing instruments, and that was your life, and you knew what you wanted.
Yeah, it's true, but I did get enough playtime in. My brother and I really ran around the neighborhood lots with our pals. We weren't sports kids, so we missed that part of, like team sports and that kind of stuff, because we were busy practicing our instruments. I would say that's probably the one thing that I missed out on. Not that I'm a big sports guy, but it would have been a confidence builder, because sports are great that way.
But so is music.
Yes, it can be.
It's healing, and and what you do, you're inspiring others, and but So are you originally from Toronto?
I am. I was born in Europe,
Yes.
but I was raised in Toronto.
Vienna?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You remembered right. That's it.
Yeah, so you got your taste for the cabarets in Toronto, and what was that like, the scene?
Oh, it's incredible. We were so lucky. I didn't realize at the time we had half a dozen full professional cabarets. Some of them went from Monday to, they booked talent in from Monday to Saturday. So you'd start your show on a Monday. By Wednesday, you'd have worked the details out. Thursday, the crowd started to really pack the place. They'd all heard the show was good because all the show people, all the other entertainers would come at the beginning of the week. And that era, which I guess I'm talking about the 80s, early 80s, late 70s too, although I wasn't around, but that's when that scene was happening in Toronto. And it really gave a big leg up to people like myself. I mean, I'm still performing in the style that I began my career in just when I was a teenager.
Wow.
You know.
Is there a favorite venue in Toronto that you like to go to?
That when I'm attending a show?
Yes.
I like the Jazz Bistro. It's a beautiful, beautiful venue with good food, great sight lines, and they book fantastic stuff there. Jazz mostly. And then in terms of other venues that I would go out to, I tend not to go out and hear music so much in Toronto. It's like a busman's holiday for me. If I'm out on the road or if I'm on vacation, we went to a wedding in Montreal and I was thrilled to go to a jazz club there because I'm like, it just didn't feel like work. But in Toronto, it feels like, because I know everybody and, so I don't go out that much, to be honest.
But you're always out, you're always performing.
I'm out, that's
yes.
it, right?
And how do you feel when, you're engaging with the audience and you see them, it gives you that extra energy, because you're energy enough, but then it gives you that more energy because of that connection with the audience. So how does that feel?
It's quite magic. It's quite magic. When it's working right, we're all in sync, and like there's a kind of a magic where they're in the music and I'm in the music and the music's kind of happening. Occasionally you have to fight a little harder to get that magic to happen, and some nights the magic doesn't even happen no matter how hard you work. That's pretty rare, Yes. And I'm like a pit bull. I go after them until they're mine. So.
and I also, you were with the Nylons, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
It's fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm very, very blessed. I mean, first of all, I'm a baritone, as you can tell from my talking voice. And so that means that when they needed a baritone, I was certainly on their short list, and we clicked. I had never sung harmony. I'd never sang a cappella. And so I had to also learn dance steps, which I wasn't really used to. It was a lot. It was a really, really steep learning curve for me. But once I was riding the horse, we had like many, many good years where I was touring the world, creating music for audiences that were truly, Nylon's audiences were like no other audience. They participated with their whole spirits, It's quite magic. And that was like going to university for me. I learned, like how to handle myself, like how to handle being on flights and then getting to the hotel and then running to the venue and only getting a little bit of time to eat, do your sound check, do your show, get up early the next day and do it all again. Is actually, we were talking about it before the interview, it can be very draining. We all know what it's like to miss a partial night, but then to hit a partial night's sleep, but to hit stage, you really want to have, ultimately, you want to have a lot of energy, right? Yes. So, I learned a lot about conserving energy and when to really focus and hit it. As I'm a very gregarious person, I like to talk to a million people. They used to laugh at me. The Nylons would be like, there's Micah sitting in the front with the limo driver, and like, he's going to be exhausted by day 3 on the tour. But I was young. So I was like, woohoo, let's go meet the world,
Well, I've saw like The Lion Sleeps Tonight.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's a great song.
And but do you ever miss performing with the Nylons?
Yes, I do. They've asked me back a few times, and I've
Awesome.
come back and guested. What I miss, certainly the camaraderie, although I do build shows with musicians and singers that allow me in my own solo career to work with people. But more than anything, singing 4-part harmony a cappella is like, it's a high wire act. It takes a lot of skill, ears, you got to really use your ears, and it's about rhythm and intonation and tone and emotional expression, and it's a lot, right? So it's a very high level of achievement, and so I really value and revere that kind of singing, and certainly I would miss that.
Yes. Well, you know, you're on tour with New York Stories.
Yeah.
So it was re-released.
Yeah, yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I started the record independently, and then E1 Music picked it up, and we re-released it and ended up back at the top of the jazz charts, which was so lovely. And you know, it's meant that I've been able to tour as a solo artist from coast to coast, and that's just been such a lovely experience for me. Really, truly great.
Right now you're here in Vancouver. So.
Yeah, loving it. And it's probably the third time I've been here at this time of year with a show called Christmas in New York. And it's such a fun time of year to come and sing for people.
Yeah, so when you're in New York, you did a lot of writing, right?
Yes.
Tell us about that. What a great place to be in New York.
Yeah.
So how did that feel? Like, were you writing a lot there? And
Yeah. Well, what happened was I was romancing in a new relationship, and I wasn't sure where it was going, which when you're insecure and vulnerable and a little freaked out emotionally, it's a perfect time to write songs, you know?
Oh.
As opposed to when everything's great, you know, a little drama, a little chaos, it's good for the songwriting. So I used that time, and because I was only in New York for romance. I wasn't really there for my career, and so I had all this time on my hands. And I locked myself in these little songwriting studios. Well, they're actually piano studios off of Times Square, but you can rehearse in there, get your audition ready, and people book them by the hour. So I booked myself in there every 3-4 times a week and just stared at the empty page, sat at the piano, and tried to make sense of my experience being in love and being in New York. And I'll tell you, the musical history of New York was so inspirational for me. It really helped me make a record or a recording that was full of songs that are really, really honest and really true to my experience, you know?
well, what did you like most about New York?
Well, you know what? I think it's the mythological, the feeling that everything that you do in New York feels like, oh, here I am on Fifth Avenue in New York. Like like everything's mythologized, you know, like you're not just having a meal. You're having a meal in your favorite restaurant in your favorite neighborhood in New York, you know.
New York is, and you know, like, do you have a favorite song? Like, you've got Harlem Moon,
Yeah.
and tell us about that. How did that title come about?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. That was okay. So first of all, I was really jealous because I thought, maybe I'm not the only suitor and I was like, this is going to be a hellacious moment for me. What am I going to do? So I went for a walk, and I was staying up in Harlem. In Harlem, the East River ends up becoming the Harlem River. So it's just the same river, but they just rename it. So I went, and there was this beautiful little parkland that they created right by the river. The city had redone it. So I would walk, and I would kind of do it during the day. And then one time I was just overwhelmed with jealousy, and I went and I walked there at night. And I saw that moon, and I just thought, it's like the moon is my friend, and you're gonna help me work this out, you know? And so that becomes embedded in the language of the lyric. And I send the moon to go and spy on my love. Okay, Harlem Moon, you're going to spy for me.
Like, how long did it take you to write it? Or what was the process like? I know you went for the walk, but
Sure.
how long, like, was it like an hour? Or like, how did you come?
Do you know what, with that one, I think, you know what happened? The idea came,
Yes.
the feeling was there. I probably sketched the lyric while I was in New York. I co-wrote the melody with J.P. Sachs, who was a fantastic young singer-songwriter from Canada. And he and I worked on it back in Toronto after I was back. So a lot of times I would take the songs back to Canada and kind of work on them some more and finish them up. And that was one of those ones that I worked on with JP up in Toronto. But, you know, JP and I have written in LA and New York, so I can't quite remember if we wrote it in Toronto. But I did take that to a co-writer, which has been rare for me, but his melodic sensibility was perfect for that song.
That's great. And then I got my baby back.
Oh, yeah. Don't take my baby, New York, New York. Yeah, I needed a song.
Yeah, so that's cool. So tell us about being a vocal coach.
Well, it's an honor and a blessing to work with the next generation, you know? I mean, I love working with singers, young singers, people who want to be in this profession, and some people that just want to do it because they love it. I also love coaching human beings who just want to sing, you know? Listen, coaching is a calling for me. It's not it's not, so I feel, and some of my clients do really, really well, you know. Vanessa Marie Carter is a wonderful country artist who just got signed to Universal. I'm very excited for her. A young man who I've been working with, who's Miles Costello, just got signed to Warner Brothers in Canada. And JP Sachs was my client for years, and he's now taking over Spotify as we speak. You know, it's just blown up. Yeah. So these are the kinds of people that are the next generation of Canadian singer-songwriters and jazz artists and country artists, and it's an honor, and I really take it very seriously. I really want to give. I always imagine if I was in their shoes, what is it that I would need, and I try to really zero in on what their needs are and do the best I can to kind of fulfill it. You know, fulfill what they're. Yeah. How can I fill the gap in their knowledge? You know.
Well, how did you fall into it?
Paying the rent.
Paying the rent.
Oh yeah, 100%. When I started, I was 21 years old. And people would come by my apartment if they had an audition, and they would go, "Can you help me? Can you help me?" I'd be like, "Yeah, come on by," and I would help them with an audition. Oh, and Rebecca Jenkins got a feature film. Oh, okay, that's good. I must have a knack for this. Okay, and then the next, you just move on into people's lives. You become the person that they go and see when they're trying to put their set together. And I went, okay, I better start charging for this. And then it just became actually a way to make the rent when I was in my 20s. And then eventually I went, okay, I'm a voice coach, I'm a performance coach, and I'm a career strategy coach. Let's get real. Let me make this part of what I do, Mm-hmm.
What do you like most, performing or writing? Or is there...
I'm a Gemini. So I like the quiet, creative time for writing. There's nothing like chasing that muse and trying to find the detail, just problem solving as a songwriter. It can be challenging, like I get anxious sometimes, but anxious about it in the process. Performing feeds a different part of my personality, the gregarious person who loves people and likes to be in communication. As a performer, getting to sing my songs, it's all of one in a way, but they are different parts of the different vibrations or different moods, if you will,
Yeah, and you've acted too, and tell us a little bit about your acting roles.
Sure. Well, I started in the theater at the same time as in the cabarets, and The Toronto scene was fantastic. I was studying with teachers and being cast in shows and finding my feet on stage as a performer. I decided not to pursue a full-time acting career, although I did some television and movies and a lot of theater. But I'm not as comfortable as I am in the music world. I found I didn't have as much agency. I didn't have as much power or control as an actor. And I didn't see myself getting more comfortable in that world. So although I love it and it's very interesting to me, music really just kind of took me and had its way with me.
Yes, it's your calling.
It's my calling. To act it adds to my kit bag as a performer, you know?
Yes. And what is next for you?
Well, I just putting the finishing touches on a new album.
Oh.
I'm very excited.
You can't say?
I can say anything.
Oh.
It's up to me. I can say anything I want.
Okay.
I'm happy to. It's called Vegas Breeze.
Vegas
Yeah,
Breeze.
and it's all that Vegas showroom material, not the stuff that we're really familiar with. I really dug to find songs that were popular by people like Nat King Cole and Mel Torme and Judy Garland and Lena Horne, Peggy Lee. So not just the Frank and Dean and Sammy, although we represent them as well. I'm trying to expand that. I'm calling it the Vegas Alternative Playlist.
Exciting.
You know? Yeah, I'm having fun. It's got horns and strings and girls. It's a big explosive production. Whereas the last record, New York Stories, was like walking into a late night jazz club and there's a jazz trio playing. This one is you open the door to the casino and suddenly the showroom is alive.
Oh, wow. And it's reliving, right?
Very much.
In the 1960s?
Yeah, early 60s. Wow. Yeah, so much fun.
So where can people find you? I know social media, right?
Of course,
But
yes. So MicahBarnes.com, my website, is the place where you can get to the social media, you can get to all the online music, and also get a hold of me and go, where are you playing next? And I'm always happy to answer people's emails. And I will be crossing the country with the new album, so I'm looking forward to coming to the West Coast with it.
Well, we would love for you to come back on the show.
That would be my pleasure.
Do part 2.
I would love that.
And thank you very much for coming on the show.
Such a pleasure.
And we'll be right back.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.